What up, everybody? Good morning and a happy Wednesday to you all. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com. Stream it up at our download the app and stream it up over there too. Download that Sports Talk app. You can stream us on your Google and Alexa home devices, your smart devices. Video streams are up and rolling as well here this morning. Little issues with Instagram for whatever reason, but we're still up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A big thanks for making us a part of your start on this. Well, if you're in our area, chilly starts to your morning here. What do we got on our game plan for us this morning? We'll talk a little green and gold. Matt LaFleur held his season-ending press conference yesterday. It was shortly after we hopped off the air yesterday. I would say nothing too big of note, but if you were a fan that's listened to it and such, if anything kind of stood out to you, you can hit us up with the text on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line or comment on the video streams if something kind of stood out to you during LaFleur's presser or not. But probably, one newsworthy note, Tom Clements, longtime quarterbacks coach, going to be calling it a career. He's retiring, so there will be at least one position on the coaching staff for the Packers to fill in. But Tom Clements, who spent, obviously 2 stints with Green Bay, first up with Mike McCarthy and then with Matt LaFleur these last, has it been 3 years, 4 years, 3 years or so. But coached Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and of course, Jordan Love here most recently. But that'll be one position for sure that Green Bay will be looking to fill. We'll see if there's going to be any more, obviously, in the coming days and in coming weeks and such. But we'll hit up a little bit and maybe some other comments here too. He addressed, the play action, or maybe the amount of times they've used play action this year, and kind of explained the mindset and that sort of thing. So we'll go over some of that. And again, if anything really kind of stood out to you during the presser yesterday, share it with the rest of the class here. All right, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we'll talk some hoops, and it was a busy night in the state of Wisconsin for some hoops. We had the Bucks picking up a 130-115 victory against the Sacramento Kings. So the Bucks bouncing back after losing to the Knicks on Sunday and giving up 140 points in that contest. The Bucks come back and put up 130 and get the win against the Kings team that has been playing really well as of late, too. Giannis, you can't say this too much, but he added his name again to some history books last night. His 50th career triple-double, 33 points, 13 assists, and 11 rebounds. The 12th player in NBA history to have 50 or more triple-doubles. So he's actually amongst current players. He's 7th on that list. But nonetheless, 12th player in NBA history to have at least 50 or more. And odds are he's probably going to get at least a few more throughout his career. Dame time, 24 points, 7 assists. Brooke Lopez also helping out the cause, putting up 21 points. AJ Green playing 30 minutes off the bench and contributing 16 points. Bucks are going to be right back at it tonight as they're going to be taking on the Orlando Magic. Tip time for that game is going to be at 7 o'clock. Coverage again will begin around 6:30 on your radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. And then on the college side of things, you had the Badger men's basketball team. They jumped out to a big lead in the first half of their game against Ohio State last night. It's up 17.5. But Ohio State came out in the second half. Badgers offense was pretty darn quiet there in the second half, and Badgers just squeaking by, barely holding on and picking up a 70-68 victory. And it was Greg Gard's 200th career win. 200th career win. Badgers improved to 14-3 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. Stephen Krall, 14 points, 7 rebounds. John Blackwell, 15 points. John Tonje, 17 points, and he was 10 of 10 from the free throw line. Badgers shot 89.3% from the line and out shooting Ohio State from the charity stripe. Badgers went to the charity stripe 28 times, whereas Ohio State went 15. Badgers just shooting 22.7% from three. And then Marquette may not have looked like it on the schedule, but Marquette had to go to overtime to defeat DePaul yesterday, last night. They did 85-83, but it did take to overtime to do it. David Joplin with a career high, 30 points for Marquette, played 42 minutes in the contest there too. This was the thing for Marquette last night. So not a lot of bench play. In fact, Trey Norman played 14 minutes, and that was the only bench player to have double-digit minutes, but 0 points. Of the 85 points, 0, nothing, nada came from Marquette last night. All the scoring from their starters. A lot of it, obviously, from Joplin. So, but we'll talk some college hoops as well, and some NBA hoops overall because, well, we had Bucks, Badgers, and Marquette all picking up wins last night. So we'll hit that up and take a look at that. We've got stock reports. All right, whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling. All right, think about that. So you had that was your homework assignments. Whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling in your opinions. All right, unless you got them already, you can let me know and send those puppies on over right away. Probably dabble into some other items over here too. We might do a little business of sports segment coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. There's this sports streaming package. Remember the rumors and all that? We got some cost numbers and such like that. So we'll hit that up and maybe hit that up coming up as a little bit of a business of sports segment, maybe in the 8 o'clock hour here too. So, but let's get things rolling here this morning, shall we? That's your game plan. We're going to talk some hoops with the Badgers and Marquette squeaking by with wins. Bucks picking up a victory. Giannis again etching his name in the history books over there. Stock reports are due throughout the morning. 9 o'clock due time. Earlier the better, though, so we can share it with the rest of the class here. We'll begin though. Talk a little bit about Matt LaFleur's presser yesterday. I don't think it was anything too noteworthy, but there were a few comments from Matt LaFleur yesterday that we can dissect and talk a little bit about. But if there was something that kind of stood out to you in his presser yesterday, what was it? What maybe kind of stood out to you? Share it with us. Share it with the class, okay? Hit me up with the text 715-830-1912. Again, on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. Let's take our first break, and then we'll jump right into it here this morning. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hit me up. I want to hear from you this morning. All right, let's jump right into it here this fine Wednesday morning, opening up things, chatting a little green and gold. We'll get to some of your texts coming up a little bit later on here, but we begin. Let's kind of recap some of the stuff that Matt LaFleur had to say in his season-ending presser. The big note, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, is that um, uh, Tom Clements couldn't spit his name out for crying out loud this morning. Tom Clements, longtime quarterbacks coach, is going to be retiring. So the Packers will be looking for a new quarterback coach, or maybe what is probably most likely going to be happening, probably, like Sean Mannion. Remember, he's on the roster, or he's on the coaching staff helping out. Kind of thought maybe that was a coach in waiting, kind of, you know, job shadowing maybe Tom Clements here a little bit this year. Could be. Matt LaFleur wouldn't confirm that. Had a little smirk on his face though too. So nonetheless, that'll be a position that the Packers will look to fill this offseason. But a couple other nuggets or notes, if you will, that Matt LaFleur had to say in his presser. So obviously a big topic of conversation in the last few weeks has been about play action, has been about the play action game. And Matt LaFleur was asked about it yesterday. And he noted that this season they had more success running the football out of shotgun this year. And that's kind of just how it all played out this year. That they were having more success with Jacobs and the running attack coming out of shotgun than what they were numbers wise, according to stats and statistics out there this year. So a little, that's probably not too big a surprise. You can go ahead and look it up and such. But yeah, Matt LaFleur quote: "As far as under center play action, we ran the ball more out of the gun, and the efficiency at which we ran the ball was night and day better out of the shotgun than it was under center. That's kind of why we did what we did." And to me, that almost draws parallels to, yesterday I was bringing up the Bill Barnwell article on ESPN Plus where they talked about the Packers running the football. There was a lot of volume for Josh Jacobs, but the efficiency necessarily wasn't there. So again, you go to that advanced statistics. If you're a believer in all that, where okay, there's, for example, Saquon, Derrick Henry, lots of volume, but they were top 2, top 3 in efficiency, having success with that. Josh Jacobs was up there in volume, but he was 135th in efficiency. So I don't know exactly if this is kind of a parallel to that, but it would make sense. To me, it's like, okay, you're having, success running out of shotgun, but and then it kind of goes back to the Jordan Love one. If you're having success running the ball out of shotgun, you're taking away, I think, an element of your passing game though too, when and they didn't completely abandon it, but it definitely felt like it wasn't used as much, right? It definitely felt like it wasn't utilized as much. And I'm a believer that I think that it had an effect on the passing attack. It had an effect on Jordan Love and that. So yeah, it numbers and the success might have been there for running the ball out of shotgun, but at what cost though, too, did it come? Maybe kind of cutting your snaps or your plays coming out of under center and out of play action. Was that kind of a cause and effect relationship with the passing attack there a little bit? But as he noted too, every season is going to be different, every year is going to be different and such. But that was definitely a theme that was. I mean, there was more than just one question asked about play action. You could go check out the whole presser if you'd like at Packers.com there. But that was definitely a theme in terms of of play action, and it's unique in the aspect when you hear these coaches, and LaFleur is the only one. We pay more attention to him, obviously, because of, that's our state team and such. But there is definitely, where what we talk about and what the advanced analytics people consider and talk about the pro football focuses and such. But from the coaching side of things, there's a little bit of differences in terms of how NFL coaches view certain plays in terms of like how they view what a play action is, compared to advanced analytics. So, for and LaFleur broke it down a little bit here too. And I know a lot of people are probably going to be listening to that part. They're probably going to think he sounds not that very intelligent and such, but I think he makes an intriguing point there too, because he talked quite a bit about, you know, and he said he was going to dive into this in the offseason, but when I say we, maybe just the normal people out here, when we think of play action, we think of, the fake handoff and that sort of thing. But as LaFleur noted, there's other aspects to what could be a play action. Is it the offensive linemen that are getting in pass blocking sets, or run blocking sets, but it's a throw, and there's other nuances to this that could determine whether a play is actually play action or not. So it's kind of a deep dive into that. I suggest if you want to learn more a little bit, I always find that stuff fascinating because it's like when I'm listening to a game or watching a game, I want to learn from the color commentator, whoever's doing the game. I want to learn some things. I'm not the smartest person. Nobody is, and just learning from different viewpoints and understanding, okay, why maybe somebody or a team is doing that and such. So that's where, Brady has his ups and downs in a game. But when he gets into quarterback talk and he gets into, offensive talk and such and points out that's different stuff, that's what I eat up is I want to learn. I want to know more. And it was kind of interesting hearing LaFleur a little bit talk yesterday during his presser about, the different ways of kind of saying what a play action play really is. And he's right. I think a lot of us just have this mindset that it's already built in, that it's the fake handoff and boom, you're off your way. But there's more to it that is kind of considered what a play action play is out there. I just thought it was kind of interesting. You can go check it out. There's a few different instances where they talk about it and bring it up and such. But LaFleur, a couple more things from his presser yesterday too. He was asked, or this was a quote or tweet from Matt Schneidman. Matt LaFleur asked himself 3 questions out loud at the podium. Does Jordan Love need to play better? Does he need to coach him better? Does Love need more players around him? All 3 answers. He answered absolutely. So absolutely Jordan Love needs to play better. Absolutely he needs to coach him better. Absolutely Jordan Love needs more players around him. And LaFleur talked a little bit about Jordan Love's inconsistencies in his footwork. I mean, probably if you were listening that thing and watching that thing, you're like, preach it to the choir, man. Because how many times do we talk about the fadeaway throws and throwing off the back foots and that sort of thing? And LaFleur talked about it a little bit at various points yesterday too, and said, that's something that he wants Love to really work on in the offseason is those fundamentals, is that footwork there. Said, quote, I think he's an ascending player who's going to get better and better and better. He approaches the game the right way. Also said, it's asked about his development. It's not just him. We have to catch the ball better. We've had a lot of drops, but mentioned the consistency of footwork, especially in rhythm plays, so that, as Ryan Wood said, Jordan Love as an area improvement for this offseason. LaFleur says Love's fundamentals were mostly good this year, but not as crisp early in the season when he couldn't practice. And it also sounds like, too, that Matt LaFleur may be looking for some more team leaders within that locker room. I don't know if anybody else kind of got the gist of that a little bit there. Because LaFleur also noted, too, about Love that the next step for Jordan Love is to grow as a, quote, vocal leader. in the locker room. I think he's taken steps to get there, but he can really demand a lot because the locker room respects him. And I thought that was, I think this is part of it is the youth of the team, and it's a young team. And I think, you got guys, and Jordan obviously has been there for a few years, but this was his second year as a starter. There's always a little, and I think it's natural and I think it's human. There's always a little apprehension from young guys coming in and trying to, be a leader right away, especially being a vocal leader right away. And that's where I think, yes, these guys, these younger guys, like a Tucker Kraft or a Jordan Love or somebody else, it needs, like, I hate forced leadership. Like, you can tell anybody who's, maybe it's at work or anybody who's played sports or something like that, and you could tell when there's just like fake leadership, right? When somebody, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, maybe we've all kind of gone through this, but you could tell when it's like, okay, that's manufactured. You're like, yeah, okay, that's just no. It's got to come natural though too. Like it's got to come natural to that point, and I think you can work at it so that it becomes natural. But I don't. I maybe I'm one of the few, but I don't respond to, like, when I can tell it's like forced or fake. Like, okay, yeah, okay, shut up, sort of thing. It doesn't get me going, but you can get there. And I think, especially playing at that quarterback position when he's already has the respect, I think it's pretty darn obvious when you hear players, not only last year, but this year, talk about Love and that. He's got that ability. He's got that ability to potentially take that next step and be a leader for this team. But that also goes back to something we were talking about the other day. That's why I wouldn't mind if they went out and maybe got a couple veterans in free agency to mix in with these youngsters, to kind of maybe not necessarily mentor them, because if you're going to bring veterans in, I want them to play and I want them to be contributors and such. But also kind of go about it the right way. Like, I'll say this. That wide receiver room, I'm going to bring up the wide receivers here in a second. But this is something that I think we need to keep going back to, that Ted Thompson did a fantastic job at. And it was just always having that cupboard stacked with the next guy up. You had Driver. Let's start off with the Driver era. Okay, Donald Driver. Then you bring in Greg Jennings. Then you bring in James Jones. And then you have Jordy Nelson the next year. So you had your veteran leader of Donald Driver right there. Greg was next in line. But it was just like, okay, everybody followed Driver's lead. Then everybody kind of followed Greg's lead. Then everybody kind of followed Jordy's lead. And then, Randall comes in. Everybody kind of, it was just like, it was like a pecking order. Next, Greg Jennings moves on. It's Jordy's team. Jordy moves on. It's Randall Cobb. Devontae's mixed in there too. And then it was Devontae's team. You just had that natural progression of leadership. And it was just kind of this continuity of how the wide receiver room should be. And then when Devontae left, I mean, last year, your veteran leaders were Watson and Dobbs, second-year guys. And for the longest time in Green Bay, you just had that natural progression of leaderships of how that wide receiver room is ran and how you go about yourself. I mean, how many guys throughout those 15, however many years it was? I mean, I can remember how many of these receivers, whether it was a Adams or a Cobb, talk about how they went about their business, how to be a pro. And I think that's one element that's missing within this locker room right now, is to kind of have in some of those rooms, in some of those position group rooms, whether it is a wide receiver or somewhere else, just to kind of have that guy in there. It's like, this is how we go about things. By all accounts, Josh Jacobs did that this year in year one, and that guy's a veteran. You listen to Marshawn Lloyd. Okay, go back a couple days ago. You listen to Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd rode to the stadium, practicing that with Josh Jacobs all the time. Heck, even Zadarius Smith. Okay, I've got some problems with Zadarius Smith, but when he first came to Green Bay his first year, the guy that he kind of took under his wing and such right away was Rashawn Gary. You kind of need some of those guys, and I feel like the receivers a little bit didn't necessarily have that. I mean, when Watson and Dobbs were rookies, you're veteran. You had Alan Lazard there. Okay. And I think that's something they got to get back to and build up that room and other positions too. Offensive line was the same thing, right? I mean, for crying out loud, you want to go back to 2010 or such, you could throw in Clifton, but then Balaga was a rookie, or Clifton and Tauscher. Balaga's a rookie. He comes in and such. And then you fast forward to 2014. You had that offense. You had Josh Sitton in 2010 too, right? But then you had these veterans, and then you'd sprinkle in young guys. 2014, Sitton's there, Balaga's there, TJ Lang's there, Bakhtiari's in his second year. You got a new center in Corey Linsley. And it was just kind of, when that guy leaves, you've already prepared the next dude to be that guy, that leader of your position group. And I think those are very important, but kind of overlooked and maybe at times underappreciated aspects of this. Before I get back to the receiver thing, another thing too that so LaFleur talked a little bit about the defense yesterday too. And there was a note that he said about the defense that I thought it was kind of interesting too. He was asked, and I wish I remember, and I wrote down the question, but I wish I remember who had asked this question. But he was asked, what did you envision for this defense? Heading into the season, what did you envision with this defense? And he acknowledged, he's like, oh, I envisioned 4-man rush, a little bit, more coverage, guys in the back end and such. But so, yes, he envisioned a 4-man rush, more guys in coverage, getting home with 4 guys. And acknowledged it wasn't quite working. They had to do some adjusting and such throughout the season. So I think that also kind of tells you it's not quite there yet. Arrow is absolutely trending upward when it comes to the defense right now, but it's not quite there. And for a lot of us who shared that same message or shared that same wish, if you will, like, I want a 4-man rush and getting home with 4, not just throwing 4 guys out there and just let them rush, but you got to get home with that 4-man rush. Something that we all wanted to see. Apparently that was LaFleur. Was his expectation. That's what he wanted to see too. And didn't get there, whether it was the coaching, whether it was the players. But I got to imagine that's going to be something that is looked at quite a bit in this offseason, whether it's addressed draft, free agency, and such. And that's going to be my expectation for next year. It's like, okay, this was your expectation this year. This was what you envisioned your defense to be. Wasn't that way this year. Let's see it next year. I want to see it next year. All right, quick break, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the wide receivers here. Something that's trending on social media. You probably saw it all. If not, I'll tell you what it is coming up next. Older temps is a good reminder too that sometimes we may have some delays or closings when it comes to schools and such. And it's always a good idea to stay tuned to our website, sportstalk1051.com, for the WEAU 13 News First Alert school closings that are brought to you by Hovland's and ServiceMaster. So check it all out. Nothing for this morning, but it's just a good reminder. It is chilly out there. So if it, we've seen times where it's gotten pretty darn cold and school's been closed and such, or obviously with snow and that. But always stay tuned to our school closings and delays at our website, sportstalk1051.com, the WEAU 13 News First Alert School Closings, brought to you by Hovland's and ServiceMaster. So, talking a little bit about, could Green Bay maybe add a veteran or two in free agency to go with some of their youth and such? One player thinks that would be a good idea. That's one Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams was on Up and Adams yesterday saying it's looking right now, when he was asked about where the Packers need to focus on this offseason, looking right now, they might need some receiver help in one way or the other, maybe a veteran or something. We'll see. To which, of course, you've got Packers fans on social media clamoring at the idea of bringing Devontae Adams back to Green Bay. Xavier McKinney even getting in on it on social media, saying, man, pull back up, and tagging Devontae Adams on social media. So the other part of this, too, is I think, when you look at the wide receiving market, T. Higgins is probably number one, right? I think it's fair that T. Higgins is number one out there, and even Devontae asked about it, or what talked about potentially T. Higgins going to Green Bay and that. But let me ask you this, Packers fans, if you could add one. I'll give you the scenarios here. You could add T. Higgins, who is 25 years old. He'll actually be 26 here in a couple days, it looks like. And he's probably going to get a big deal. Probably one of the highest paid receivers in the game. Fair to say, right? You could say, well, he's not a top one. We know how markets work in free agency, right? So he'll be 26. He's going to be 26 here in a couple days. Throw the cash at him for a few years, or do you bring back, let's just assume Devontae is going to be a free agent, okay? Let's assume, just for argument's sakes, that both of these will be available unless T gets a franchise tag, whatever. Let's just assume both are unrestricted free agents. Do you go T, who's younger, a little bit more upside at this point in his career, or Devontae, who's 32 years old, but you get a veteran maybe to come in for a couple of years and kind of, provide that veteran leadership, that veteran presence within that wide receiving room. Something I think that has been kind of missing the last couple of years. And Devontae is probably going to be a little cheaper, right? Probably going to be a little bit cheaper than T. Higgins. So assume, just for argument's sakes, would you rather spend more money on a younger wide receiver with, at this point in time in their careers, more upside, maybe more playmaking ability, T. Higgins, or do you spend probably a little bit less money, older, at the back end of his career, but a guy that obviously LaFleur is very familiar with, and a lot of these guys are kind of familiar with, Jordan a little bit there too, and a guy like Devontae? Which would you rather go? Which route would you rather go? And try to take away, okay? Think of this as a business decision. Try to take away the Homer part of this. It's like, well, duh, it's Devontae, former Packer, one of the better Packer receivers in recent history. Of course it's Devontae. Bring him home. Think about this from a business side. Think about it from a personnel side. You're Goody. Which way would you go with this thing? Okay, I'll give you a little bit to think about it, and you can hit me up with text and that over there. But if the opportunity presented itself, T. Higgins, more money, younger, higher upside, Devontae, back end of his career, a little bit older, but cheaper. Which way would you go? Okay. Curious to see where people go with this one. Now I know there's been kind of some polls like that out there already, but I want to see what the 715 and what our nation has to say about this one. And again, try. I know it's hard, but try to keep the emotions out of this. It's a straight up business decision at this point. So hit me up with the text with your pick, or you can comment on the video streams over there too. So we'll keep it. It's kind of an informal poll. I'm not going to put it up on Twitter or anything like that. But text me and give me your reasons why over there too. So all right, coming up next hour, we'll talk a little hoops and such. But last night was a big night for Wisconsin State hoops. If you're a hoops fan, Bucks picking up another win. I should say bouncing back from a loss on Sunday against the Knicks, picking up a win last night. Giannis, though, etching his name again in the record books, the 12th player in NBA history, 12th player in NBA history to have 50 or more triple doubles. Giannis, 13 assists. That's always like when it comes to the big man, right? When it comes to Giannis and such, where was the third one? It's going to be points and rebounds. The assists. He had more assists than rebounds. Think about that. So, but got his 50th triple double of his career. So, joining, well, just he's actually seventh on active players right now, but only the 12th player. I honestly thought it would have been a little bit more. Here's your, in case you're wondering, he's like, who's above him? Russell Westbrook has 202. Oscar Robertson has 181. This is the insane one. Who's at number 3? This is utterly insane. The Joker, Nikola Jokic from Denver, 146 triple doubles. Is it that far-fetched to say when his career is done, he's going to be the all-time leader in triple doubles and he's a big man? I don't think it's that far-fetched at all. But it's like, hey, Giannis, 12th player to get 50 or more triple doubles. And you look at the tops with Russell Westbrook's got 202 and the Big O's got 181 and the Joker's got 146. Magic Johnson's fourth at 138. LeBron's got 120. Jason Kidd 107. Luka's got 80. Harden's got 78. Wilt Chamberlain had 78. This is the other one that kind of surprised me too. Sabonis. Right now, Sabonis with the Kings, 63. 63. Larry Bird had 59, and then Giannis right now at 50. When you look at playoffs, Magic has the most at 30. Then it's LeBron at 28, the Joker at 18, Westbrook had 12. Ironically, Draymond Green had 10 postseason triple doubles, but he's not at 50 in his career for the regular season. Thought that was kind of interesting there. But Bucks will be back at it again tonight, taking on the Orlando Magic. But Giannis and Dame a little bit after the game talked about the intensity that they had in that game yesterday. And Giannis talked about, how the Bucks haven't quite found a way to bring the focus that they brought to the Kings last night in all of their games. Giannis saying, we got to consistently compete. That's the only thing that's missing. Look, don't get me wrong. Before the New York game, we were fourth in the East or something. It's not like we are horrible or we've had a horrible year. We've had a good year overall, but like at times, we are a little bit inconsistent when it comes to our effort. We just got to set the tone as a leader of the team. We got to set the tone. We got to be more consistent early in the game, early in the third quarter. Our guys look at us. If Ryan Rollins comes into the game and we are BSing, he's going to BS. It's human nature. So we've just got to be more consistent with our spirit. Our spirit's always got to be high. Our competitive spirit has got to always be high no matter win or lose. We got to play. Like I feel like the stretch we went on that we won 7 in a row or like 9 and 1 and 10, like it was all close games. Our competitive spirit was high. We were playing good teams and still were into the game. The game we lost, like against Boston, we were in the game. The game we lost against Atlanta, we were in the game. So what that tells you is that we're competing, and that's what we got to do. We got to consistently compete. That's the only thing that's missing from this team, and we just got to figure out a way to do it. Dame kind of echoed the same things, saying, I think the number one thing is just governing ourselves. Our coaches are always the ones that saying something. I think for our team, it's time for us to get on each other's butts. Can't use the word he used. The ups and downs, we're too good of a team for it. We see what it looks like when we do these things and when we don't. I think it's just reached a point where we got to address each other however we need to. Just be like, enough is enough. We know what's right and we know what's wrong. We know when somebody is doing their job and then when they're not. And we got to be willing to have those kind of uncomfortable moments with each other. And on the other side, we got to be willing to take it from our teammates if we want to be successful, like we say. I think that's how you hold on to it because you're going to have some slippage. You're going to have some breakdowns. But like we got to check each other and correct each other when it's going that way so we can, like Doc said, hold on to this type of spirit and this type of energy that we had in a game like tonight's. We'll see if the Bucks can continue that type of energy and that effort right away tonight as they play the Magic. So we'll talk some more hoops coming up in the next hour, including the Badgers squeaking by Ohio State. I mean, they had a 17-point lead at the half. Ohio State clawed their way back into it. Some cold shooting coming out of the second half for the Badgers allowed Ohio State to get back into it, but they won. And then Marquette picking up an OT victory on the road against DePaul. What's up, Morgs?
Bringing back the Air Jordan gear, huh?
Maybe, yeah. I kind of saw it sitting in a closet, and it's been a while. So.
I haven't seen you in Air Jordan before. So is Hudson latched on to anything like that? Because it's still around. Air Jordan was huge in my day, and if you walk into Shields, there's a whole section. Like, it's still a thing.
No, he's not a Jordan guy.
No, LeBron.
Yeah, still. I mean, he's all Giannis and then Dame. Dame's actually, I think, his favorite player right now.
Yeah,
Dame or Giannis, but yeah, it's still LeBron.
So Wyoming is doing this thing, little wild card Wednesday info for you. They're doing what they're proposing to do in Wyoming is to make a state Rushmore. So like we have Mount Rushmore with the United States presidents. They're looking to do it on a state level. So like key figures for Wyoming, 4 key figures for Wyoming.
Yeah.
So if you were going to do that for Wisconsin, who would you put on there?
Are we just leaving it sports?
We will, because you're the sports guy. But if you had to think and look back to build a sports Rushmore for Wisconsin sports, you got to think out of your own era.
Oh, so I can't go. I got to go from.
You got to go. Let's run the whole thing.
I can't go Lombardi then, obviously.
Let's go coach, player.
Coach, player.
And then from there.
Maybe like a general manager or something.
A manager would be good.
Manager,
or an owner.
executive.
A manager, owner, somewhere around there. And then you can
wild card.
And then you can plug in whoever you want for the fourth one.
But it's got to be while I was alive.
Let's do while you're alive to make it easy, because you don't have to go like way back.
Yeah.
Before they were playing with
coach
helmets.
One's easy is Lombardi, but
yeah.
I wasn't around. So wild card is Bob Uecker.
Yeah.
That's an easy one for me.
Broadcaster, that's a good one.
Executive, owner, GM. I'd probably go Ron Wolf, Packers general manager. I kind of went back and forth between him and Bob Harlan.
But now you got to think about collegiately too.
Yeah, a coach and a player now. That's because Barry would be a good one on there. Barry Alvarez.
Yeah. Badgers. But it gets complicated because you think you know it right away, and then you start thinking about it. You're like, wait, what would be the best represent? Because you could do your own personal.
Yeah.
But then thinking outside of that objectively on the state level, it kind of changes the faces a little bit.
I might have to play or go Favre.
Yeah, that was the discussion. I was having this discussion recently with somebody, and it was like, even if it was a little bit reluctantly, put yourself back in the era.
Yeah.
And that would have been an easy shoe-in, no doubt.
Yep. I think coach, I'd probably go Barry then.
Okay.
Barry Alvarez, just to kind of
because Lombardi's not in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So you have.
I could go Holmgren, but I
That's
went
2
with
Packers players, though.
yeah,
So at least you
and
have
I
the
went with
Badgers
Wolf on there
represented.
too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got Badgers, Brewers, and Packers represented.
Nothing from the Bucks.
Gosh, but player Giannis though too would be on there.
See?
Jeez
Now,
Louise.
if you were coming down to pick, would you go Wolf over Favre and put Giannis in there as a player? So you have a coach, a player.
Wolf was the one who traded for Favre.
There you go. So there's still a little bit of periphery
Yeah.
connection there. It's like it's in the ballpark of Favre.
Yeah.
It was the gateway to Favre.
It's like
So
that family tree,
there's
you
like
know.
it kind of counts, especially if you want to represent the Bucks on there in some capacity, which will put Giannis's face on.
God, now you got me self-doubting myself.
It's
I'll
a
think
good
about
four,
it. Is.
but
It is. It
yeah,
is.
you
All
could
right,
have
thanks,
an
Morgs.
extension on your assignment.
Second hour kicking off right now on this Wednesday morning. It is making the turn Wednesday. Stock reports will be due. Hit us up with your stock risers and stock fallers. We'll get to that coming up next hour, just shortly after 8 o'clock. I'm going to be talking some hoops as well with the Badger team nearly escaping against Ohio State with a win. Had a 17-point lead at the half, but cold start to the second and good shooting by Ohio State. Allowed the Buckeyes to get back into it, but the Badgers pick up a win. Greg Gard's 200th career win last night, too. Also, Marquette barely getting a victory. Had to go to overtime against DePaul last night, but they pick up a victory in a conference game. And of course, we were just talking a little bit about the Bucks on the previous hour with Giannis joining that list of players to have 50 or more triple doubles in their career, being the 12th player to join that list. Bucks picking up a 130 to 115 victory last night. Quick turnaround though for the Bucks, as they will be taking on the Magic tonight. Our kind of informal poll question out there, it's honestly about 50-50 right now, that we had asked if you could pick Packers fans between one, T. Higgins, spend more money, younger, higher upside, but it will be more money, or bringing back Mr. Devontae Adams, a little bit cheaper but older, a little more up there in the tooth, familiar with the Packers system, which one would you go? It's honestly about 50-50 at this point. So keep your picks coming. Don't have a poll up on Twitter or anything like that. Just hitting your texts or messages or anything like that. So we'll get back to some more Packers talk coming up throughout as the offseason approaches. And the other question we threw out there too, for anybody who did watch Matt LaFleur's season-ending presser yesterday, anything kind of stand out to you? Did anything kind of stand out to you, or just like, oh, that was interesting, or kind of perplexing, whatever the case may be? Let us know what kind of stood out to you. 715-830-1912. You got to pick one. You got to pick one. Can't pick neither. It's between those two. It's got to be that. That's the question. So let's say good morning to Lucas. What
Good
up,
morning.
Luke?
Good
How are
morning.
you over your loss on Monday nights?
I guess like
Get over it, man. It
well,
happens.
here's the thing. You asked me like in August if they would have lost 27-9 to the Rams in the first round of the playoffs. I'm like, we've been right this year. Dang! Oh my God! I didn't think they were a playoff team to start. Then, of course, perspective changes. How many times has this happened in sports? How many times do we go through this with the Brewers over the last, I'd say 17 years, I'd say. We've gone through this a lot with that team as an example of a team that comes in with low expectations. Expectations go way up. People get really bummed out at the end. Like, yeah, but at the beginning, you'd have taken it. I mean, the bummer part is not the loss in and of itself. It's that they looked so good for so long and then collapsed. They had been trending. We talked about this. They've been trending down. The Rams have been trending up. So this should not be a complete shock. I guess it makes the Darnold thing easier, though.
Yeah.
That was the thing I kept talking about with other people here at the radio station yesterday. Like, well, saves the Vikings money, makes the transition easier. So big picture, I mean, yeah, in the near term is like, oh, again, big picture. I mean, it doesn't rank with the worst losses of all time. Come on. No, it doesn't. You move forward. The year was not supposed to be a Super Bowl year anyway, though they should have taken advantage of what they had. I guess what they had was a quarterback that got much better, but when it really counted, wasn't that good. That was the story of 2024. So be it.
All right. Yeah. No, this was an interesting number that I saw. I don't know if anybody else kind of saw this out there, but the amount of snaps for teams, in terms of the amount of snaps, percentage snaps of players that are heading to free agency, your Vikings have the most.
I know.
Most snaps entering unrestricted free agency. Minnesota, number one, 45.4%. The fewest, Green Bay, 14.6%. And I got to imagine a big chunk of that was probably Josh Myers. So,
yeah,
But yeah, 45.4% of your snaps, almost half, going to be heading to unrestricted free agency.
Huh.
And a lot of that too is going to be Sam Darnold, right? Because
Yes.
quarterback position. So that'll be up there.
Harrison Smith is, I don't know if he's going to be back next year. You could see him retiring. Yeah, there's money that's going away. There's money they're going to be able to spend. This is another place where I'm like, the Darnold thing, if you go big picture, probably is the right move if you want to be long-term competitive. We're back to that 1 year versus you want to always be in the mix. And it's probably the best one because they're going to have more money to work with.
Yeah. Really quick, let's catch up with some text here. Smuck says, T, did you see Receivers on Netflix? Did. I actually watched it with Hutsy. Devontae is a diva on the wrong side of 30. C-Bomb says, love Devontae, but Father Time never loses. It's T. Higgins, zero doubt. Big-time playmaker. Besides, remember, Packers fans, Devontae was offered the same amount to stay in Green Bay, but he chose to go to the Raiders. I don't feel bad that he doesn't like his situation. Jeff says, if I was a general manager, I would go after Devontae Adams just because he knows the offense has a relationship and can provide some leadership in the locker room. Then I would go after Max Crosby on the defensive side. Not sure if we can afford both, but if they want to win a Super Bowl, you got to pay to play. Jeremy says, if Adams is willing to come back and take a little bit of a discount, I go Adams. But if he is not willing to take a pay cut, I go with Higgins. So big thanks to those of you who are texting in based off of those based off the question. Can't change the question. So those are your two options. So thank you to those of that. Who would you go with?
Higgins.
You go Higgins?
Yeah. I do think Adams it doesn't quite have it anymore. I know he hasn't been in all the best situations of late. This would be a big upgrade going back to Green Bay and being under Love. I would rather, if I were a Packers fan, I would rather take Higgins. And as a removed Packers fan, because I'm not, I'm removed, I'm not a Packers fan. I think neutrally, they should take Higgins. So I guess as a Vikings fan, I think they should take Adams. But the right move for them is T. Higgins. If you had to choose between the two.
If you had to choose between the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, is the right answer neither?
Well, that's not an option right now. It's you got to pick between those two. So,
but what do you think?
I honestly, I guess a lot would depend on what's the difference in the money value between the two, if that makes sense. Like, because you could say whether they deserve it or not. T. Higgins is going to get a huge contract, right? That's the market. It's going to dictate that. It's going to happen. We know that. We've been down this aisle before. So, and it's probably going to be what, a 5-year deal, 4 or 5-year deal at that point that he's going to look for. So whether he's going to be the top paid receiver or a top 5, it's going to happen because that's what the market dictates there. So part of me though is I kind of lead a little bit more towards Adams just for if he would be willing to do like a 2-year type of deal. Now that's the thing. I don't know if he would or not. But I almost would just with, to me, there's got to be a veteran leadership within that group. And that's one thing that has gone by the wayside over the last few years is, when Thompson was there, we've talked about this how many times, the next man up strategy when it comes to the wide receivers, right? And you heard these wide receivers always talk about it, like how to go about your business, how to be a pro, who to watch. You hear these receivers talk about watch Devontae or watch Jordy, how they go about their business and such. I want a little bit more of a veteran leadership within that wide receiver room right now. And, I definitely saw the, if you want to call it diva sort of stuff there too. Grass isn't always greener on the other side. Maybe that was a nice wake-up call that, you know what, it's not always the best thing to move on from a pretty good situation too. So I think there definitely was a lot of frustration with Devontae when he was with the Raiders because they didn't win any games. They stunk over there, right? So I get nervous about long-term commitments. If I can get a short-term commitment, I might be open to that.
Yeah. I think the Packers are in a better spot with Higgins, presuming he doesn't get injured compared to who they all have right now. It's like a really good poo-poo platter, to again use the Woo's Pagoda example. because there's a lot of good stuff on a poo-poo platter. I mean, sometimes it's your Dobbs, sometimes it's your Watson, sometimes it's your Reed, sometimes it's your Wicks, sometimes it's your Heath, and all of them can really excel. On the other hand, none of them alone is dinner. Watson is going to get injured again. Dobbs, okay, how stable are we talking here? Heath's not there yet. Reed is, at least this past season, declined some. But I'm not saying that he is now.
Well, I don't know if I would say decline.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the overall, like, he's not on the. Would you say? Okay, I'm going to make an overstatement here, which probably you could shoot down pretty quickly, but he's not on the glide path to being the number one guy, where you probably could have seen that a year ago. I thought Reed was settling in as number one. Probably he could still, but he's not for sure there. He's like I'm going to stop with the poo-poo platter analogies here because it's going to get into something you're like, ew, that's disgusting. He's the closest to the guy. Higgins is definitely the guy. None of those Packers receivers are turning into, like you said, the next man up to use our fantasy football terminology, your WR1. And obviously so. Some of them can be. I mean, I'd take the Packers receiver core over some other teams for sure. But Higgins would be like the person who could open up the offense on a more consistent basis. So I'm talking myself more into Higgins as I talk here.
I think the narrative that Jayden Reed declined this year, I think a lot of people are just focusing on, yes, he had issues with drops this year, but he also had, in one more game, he had 20 fewer targets, still finished with more receiving yards, higher average. I mean, you look at some of the numbers out there, he's put up better numbers than last year outside of the drops. So I don't buy the decline. I think we've seen, second year receivers, we've seen issues with that. And I think a narrative, or not a narrative, but an issue that a lot of Packers fans had too was that why wasn't Jayden Reed involved in the offense more? Why wasn't he involved in the offense more? Did he get enough opportunities? I don't think he did.
Yeah.
So if any, I think decline's probably a little bit too much a dramatic word to describe that. Definitely issues with ball security and holding on to the football, no doubt about it. But when you look at, his rookie year, he had 94 targets. This year, 75. He had 793 receiving yards his rookie year, 857 this year. 8 touchdowns his rookie year, just 6 this year. But 55 catches this year compared to 64 the year prior. So there's a lot of, it's still trending upward, but I think there was still a lot like, wish you could have seen more, but was that Jayden Reed or was that how the offense was flowing?
Fair point. How would you rank who the current receiver core, maybe top 3, if they stuck with essentially them and maybe brought in a free agent? So this is without regards to Adams nor Higgins. Where would you rank them, let's say, over the next 2 to 3 years?
As in, like, for the whole league?
Or on the Packers alone.
Like, in terms of, would they be a number 1 in that?
Yeah, who's your 1? Who's your 2?
I mean, it's obvious T. Higgins has the higher upside. I mean, he's younger and that. So, I mean, he's got more of an opportunity to do that for years. At some point, you would think Devontae is going to be, hitting a wall. We know that's going to happen. He is on the wrong side of 30 at this point, and you just don't know where that's going to end up. So, that's where I don't want to invest. Like, if Devontae is going to want $20-some million per year, but he's open, I don't even think I want that. I don't want that. I don't want to spend that much even on Devontae. If it's like a 2-year, $40 million deal, no, thank you. I'm good. I think there's better options at that point. If there's those two numbers, let's say they're very similar contract-wise are on the table, then I'm going T. Higgins. I'll go T. Higgins. But if I can get it quite a bit cheaper and on a shorter-term deal, then I might lean towards Adams. A lot's going to depend on structures of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
That's the deciding factor in that. Is there better options overall out on the market? Yeah. But the reason we have these two names, because they're the ones that are trending on Packers Twitter right now. And Devontae talking about it too. So, and here's the thing. Devontae's not even a free agent yet. He's still under contract. He's with the Jets. They got to release him or trade him. which they probably will, considering how that contract is structured up.
Right. Yeah.
So, but
okay.
Yeah, it is what it is. So, all right. Tell you what, let's take a quick break. We'll ask that question to Joe. How about that? He's coming up after these quick words.
Happy. The selection, brands, sizes, widths, service, and prices that fit just right. Come see for yourself at the Shoe Doctor. Easy to find. 2321 Claremont near Fairfax in Eau Claire.
With the temperatures a bit colder these days, your vehicle may be working a lot harder this winter season. Add in the potential for poor road conditions, and winter driving can be tough on your vehicle. That's where ASAP Used Auto Parts can help you out. Make sure your vehicle is prepared for this winter season with a new oil change to keep your engine running smooth, and that you have the proper tires for those snow-covered roads. ASAP Used Auto Parts can help you with both of those. Just give them a call to set up your appointment at 715-514-4501.
Colder months are here, and Bloomer Brewing Company has just the beer to get you through. Town Brown, a nut brown ale with a smooth, nutty taste and a solid finish. Perfect for game days or kicking back with friends. And don't forget, every Packers game comes with a bonus. Buy one, get one free pints. So rally the crew and head to Bloomer Brewing Company on Dante Taproom in downtown Eau Claire, where every handcrafted beer is brewed with the finest local ingredients. Bloomer Brewing Company. Every brew has a story. Let's hear yours.
He serves up a whole lot of sports with a whole lot of opinion, which means you've got a whole lot of listening to do. The Dan Casper Show, weekday mornings from 6 to 9.
When pain or injury slows you down, turn to the experts at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Since 1954, they have been helping patients get back to doing what they love with advanced care for bones, joints, and muscles. From sports injuries to pain management, their experienced team provides personalized treatment to help you live your life pain-free and getting back to doing what you love to do. So this year, start feeling better with the help from Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Just visit cvosm.com to get started. And as a reminder, too, with our Inside the Training Room segments with Dr. Austin Crowe that you hear every Friday, those are now available in podcasting platform. Well, they have been for a while, but you can check out just the separate playlist of Inside the Training Room. That's available at our website, sportstalk1051.com. Just click on the podcast tab, and you'll see all the different ones there. The local sports roundup from Carpet City Flooring Center, outdoor chats with DNR Jake Bolks, all that available at our website, sportstalk1051.com. If it's between these two, you got to pick between these two. T. Higgins, Devontae Adams. T. Higgins, more money, younger. Devontae, maybe a little cheaper, but older. Who you picking, Joe?
Man. I'm picking Devontae, and think the familiarity that Jordan Love has with Devontae. Think you still have a lot of young receivers that could slot into that number 2, 3, and number 4 position. I think the leadership. I think when you look at the leadership that Devontae Adams brings to the table, I think this is something this locker room. And again, happy with either. I'm not saying I don't want T. Higgins. It's going to be a massive contract for him. There's no question, and there's going to be a lot of competition for him. But if I'm Brian Gutekunst, I can get Devontae Adams, and first of all, as easy as it sounds. Secondly, that contract he has are really avoidable years on the back end of a real contract, and so you're going to have to renegotiate a deal with him to make it team friendly and also to make it worth Adams. But I think the thing I've thought about at this offseason, I think first of all, yes, wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver is a priority, obvious and evident. And I think if I had to choose between those two specifically, I would go with Devontae Adams.
Do you think, Joe, just since we're on the topic here quick, don't mean to jump right into it right away, do you think that wide receiver room needs a little bit more of a veteran presence?
Absolutely. You saw regression this year to a certain extent. You also saw how valuable Christian Watson is. And I know there's a lot of debate out there, and you and I have talked about it over the last year or two. Who's the number one? Who's the most valuable? Who do you re-sign? I think what Christian Watson does, and you look at the speed first and foremost, that the Eagles were playing a very, very soft cover 2, keeping everything in front of them, weren't worried about anything getting behind them. And you're able to scheme differently. You saw the Vikings scheming a little bit more with really no Christian Watson in that game and the man defense, because there was really nobody to beat man coverage. And so Christian Watson, and again, it was a horrible injury situation. I think he comes back. He'll probably start the year on the PUP, would be my option. But I think you look at receiver room. I think there's questions about Romeo Doubs. I mean, unfortunately, concussions now, close together, and that's with cap on. So you don't know what long-term effects you're going to have there. Christian Watson, again, is going to probably start the year on the PUP. Dontavian Wicks didn't take that next step. Bo Melton have the it factor. Jaden Reed, yes, I think Jaden Reed get slot receiver who can be a really nice number 2 in this offense. And so, I do think receiver room needs retooling, needs leadership, experience in there.
Joe, what did you make of comments specifically from Tucker Kraft, your New Jersey guy, Tucker Kraft, after it was Monday and, they're cleaning out their locker, the comments he made, we need to wake up, kind of saying the season wasn't a failure in the essence that they learned about a few players on this roster and such. Did you take that part as maybe a little bit of a shot towards some players, like those players maybe not around or they shouldn't be around with this franchise?
So, it's interesting because you look at Tucker Kraft and then you look at what Matt LaFleur said he wants from Jordan Love, and he wants a more vocal leader next year from Jordan Love. And he even mentioned about, what Tucker Kraft had said and LaFleur did. And so, I think that is. I think there's some guys on this team. What Josh Jacobs said, I think what Xavier McKinney has said, I think the Tucker Kraft comments, you saw it a couple of weeks ago. Love, Minnesota game, talking about guys need to win one-on-one matchups. So I think this locker room, that vocal leader. And, it was interesting, Captain. I was on the road game this weekend, and I got a chance to listen to a lot of Packer talk. I had a 4-hour drive, and I had a chance to listen to a lot of Packer talk. And callers were calling in and having conversations about Love's demeanor, how he always just seems like he's so calm. You know, Packer fans used to seeing the demonstrative Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, compared to Jordan Love. And Jordan Love's just not that guy. But I thought it was really interesting, though. We're kind of calling him out for that and saying, I need more of that. So I think this football team is still a very talented team. And, you know, it took me a while to grips with where this team is. Arrow's still pointing up. And when you look at this locker room, I think now it's time for, I always say, whether it's a business or a coaching situation or whatever the case may be, you've got bottom-up pressure. And bottom-up pressure comes from your teammates or your coworkers. And bottom-up pressure is better down pressure. And so, yeah, I think Kraft, you know, not naming names, named or at least took shots at some of the guys in there. You're going to see some of those guys not on this roster moving into 2025. Has an opportunity. The window is still open. Advantage of it.
Joe, did we to feed off that? I'm guilty of this, but you know, based off the success from last year, getting into the postseason, winning in Dallas, being close to San Francisco, we talked about it. You and I talked about the timeline has moved up in terms of expectations and such. Did we have too high of an expectation for this team in this unit this year?
It's a great question, and you also take that, and then you take Jordan Love's contract.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think the of the situation is fans who are knowledgeable know that the window, unless you're the anomaly, unless you're, you know, New England back in the day or Kansas City, it seems right now, you know that window is so small. You need to take advantage of it. And so, yeah, was there expectations or even fair expectations and you know, the talking heads? I mean, again, you look at football, Schrager's Super Bowl pick, Chiefs and Packers, Andrew Brandt, his NFC Championship, Packers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, were we all drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much after that playoff run last year? Talked about this, Captain. You know, learning how to win, being bullseye on your back, being the hunted rather than the hunter. Steps that I think are necessary. Growth is not linear. I think it was really what Green Bay went through at the end of the season in the playoff game against the Eagles is good for growth. This will allow them that step backwards to maybe now take those two steps forward. So expectations, I don't know if they're unfair or fair. Question. Expectations from inside 1265 were a much better were than where they ended this year.
Joe DeGuano joining us here this morning, chatting some green and gold. So we had LaFleur season-ending presser yesterday. You know, he talked a little bit here, nothing too big outside the Tom Clements news and such. But, you know, we played a little Unsolved Mysteries game yesterday. So put on your trench coat and your best Robert Stack impression for me right now, Joe. And and what is the biggest mystery surrounding this Packers offseason, do you think?
I think the biggest thing, and this again, I've got to give credit where credit is due. You know, when you listen to guys like Brian Bulaga and Mark Tauscher, the sport at that level, and the fact that Green Bay has gone from a zone, from a blocking standpoint, more of a duo scheme, more, you know, hat on hat type of situation, blocking a man rather than an area. About Josh Jacobs, and they talked about this, is prefers to run downhill out of shotgun, which flies in the face play action game that is so critical and inherent to a Matt LaFleur offense. So I think mystery this offseason is the self-scouting on the offensive side of the ball. LaFleur, adjust and adapt he has on that football team. I think Josh Jacobs, it's a good problem to have. I mean, I loved everything Josh Jacobs did this year. And that run, man, that was so fun to watch. mean, that's green. That's Barty would have been proud. And so I think this unsolved mystery is, Matt LaFleur talked about, is being Tucker Craft enough.
Mm-hmm.
How does this offense evolve? Mystery. Matt LaFleur, guru, evolved this offense. The pieces he has, it's better because there's no question. Better, and I just want to add this: 5 season, LaFleur, Jordan Love are not on the hot seat. 5 season, and you heard this a lot in the presser. The walk, the talk, offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm. I know we'll have a lot to discuss when it comes to the offseason and such, but just one more before I let you go here, Joe. So Jair Alexander obviously didn't want to talk to the reporters there, said he didn't even know if he was going to be there, said he didn't have anything good to say anyways. Is he as good as gone, do you think, right now, and he's not going to be suiting up for Green Bay anymore?
That need to prevail. He needs to be appreciated in there, because look, release him or trade him before June 2, $18.1 million dead cap hit in 2025. You save, you take everything into consideration, $1 million in the cap. If you do this after June 1, $8 million in dead cap in 2025, $10 million of dead cap in 2026, $17 million on the cap in 2025. So it's not as easy as it sounds to just say we're going to cut him and move on. So I think you let the off season a bit more. Time heals all wounds. So and hopefully it heals his knee. I think you have to evaluate where he's at in about a month, and we're not going to know that. Those are going to be conversations in 1265. So, am I going to say good is gone? No, not. Am I going to say that there's one foot out the door? Probably. It sounds like it, but it's just not that simple. Play the game, and Green Bay's in a great situation cap wise. So, but absolutely, we're going to think in the NFL in cap space right now, and so. They're in great shape, in free agency, with or without Jair. Or maybe, and I wouldn't go that far.
Mm-hmm. Joe, appreciate the time as always. Hey, next time you're in, you got to hop on our new Green and Gold podcast when you're in town, okay, bud?
That, and you know what, Captain, that is one thing I gotta give you kudos for, because for a long time. When I was doing sports talk on a regular basis, the only thing I had to worry about was turning on the mic and doing my show.
Mm-hmm.
Today's environment, content in so many different formats, that I really, and I mean this, the sports talk geek in me, multiple platforms deliver excellent content on. It's outstanding, man. So I would love to be on it. Great job, Dan Casper, message out on multiple platforms. And I got to give you kudos and cheers to you for doing it, because so many different types of need video game to be somebody like you who's delivering it. So good job. Love to be on it. I'll let you know next time I'm back in town. It happened, brother.
Appreciate it, man. Hey, safe travels. I know you're a busy guy, so we appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay, sir?
Brother.
All right, there you go. Joe DeGuano joining us here this morning for just a little bit there. Let's take a quick break, and we'll get Luke back on here and finish up the second hour. Don't forget stock reports coming up here. Whose stock is rising? Whose stock is falling? Maybe for some of you, you've got a lot of Packers involved in that stock faller class over there. All right, quick break. We'll be back in just a little bit. Last call for your stock reports, as I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, but we got a few of those coming on in here through that texting line. So hit us up. Make those picks here in a little bit. Luke and I will get to our stock reports coming up just past 8 o'clock here this morning. So switching over back to a little Bucks talk here. Giannis, again, etching his name into some NBA history books and becoming just the 12th player in NBA history to have 50 or more career triple doubles. Last night, over 30 points, 13 assists, and 11 rebounds here. But I don't know, Luke, if you've looked at the list of guys who's ahead of him right now, and to see the numbers they have. Don't look it up if you're not looking it up right now.
Okay.
Because I wanna catch you off surprise by some of these numbers. Okay.
Okay.
So 50 triple doubles from a guy like Giannis, that seems pretty impressive, right? Because with a guy like Giannis, you're thinking points and probably rebounds, a lot of double doubles, right?
Yeah.
But then you factor in the assist part of it. It's like 30 assists. Okay, so 50. The leader is all time Russell Westbrook, probably to no surprise, right? During his prime. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, Hudson was born on the night that Westbrook won his MVP. I will never forget that because I was watching it. But 202 triple doubles. That's a lot, right? Mm-hmm. The Big O, 181. Probably no surprise either if you know your basketball history. Oscar Robertson. This is what is just like, okay, it makes Giannis's accomplishment last night look incredibly small. Who's at number 3? The Joker, 146 already. The big man, Nikola Jokic, 146. Do you think it is in the realm of possibility when his career is all said and done, at that time, the Joker will be number 1 in triple doubles?
This rate, yeah. I think it's, yeah.
Think about that. 146 is big. That's unbelievable.
There's a reason why Jokic and Giannis are gosh, I was going to try to fill in a third or fourth name, but some of them have tailed off. They're unicorns, and they're playing simultaneously. Well, you don't see these types ever.
There is one other guy on here that I never would have probably guessed on here that is above him. Now, Luka's on here, too. He's got 80. I don't know if you'd put him on that unicorn, but this guy, Sabonis, 63 already. Domantas Sabonis has 63 triple doubles already.
Wow.
That would have been a name I probably wouldn't have guessed because I'm like, what? Dang, really? Already? The big from Sacramento over there?
Yeah, Domantas.
Yeah. So it's like, wow. Okay. So when you put it in the perspective of Giannis is 12th, but he's the 7th of active players. He's 7th on that. Big O's got 181. Magic Johnson's 138. Jason Kidd had 107. And then Wilt Chamberlain had 78. Larry Bird, 59. So, I mean, there's a good chance Giannis is probably going to pass Larry Bird on this list.
Yeah, I think he does.
At that point.
Ultimately.
But it's like, I see these headlines, it's like, oh, Giannis, 12th. And then you put it in these numbers, it's like, dang, though. It's like, you got some dudes that there's, he ain't going to be catching at any point in time.
The trick with some of these players is that they're able to do everything, and they need to do everything in order for their teams to succeed. If there is no Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bucks have a much tougher time of being competitive. Sometimes they've shown sometimes they can do that even in the playoffs. But by and large, you'd rather have Giannis than not based on the current structure of this team. Same for the Nuggets. No Jokic, they're not competitive. Instead, you have Jokic, they win a title. They're right now, the 4th seed, I think, as of last night. So that's when you have guys like that. And I'm not saying like Sabonis is the only guy for Sacramento. That's not the case there. But with a lot of these, they have to be able to do a lot of things and be a multi-position player. Essentially, the modern Magic. Magic was the prototype for all of this. Someone who could do all of this. And of course, you mentioned Oscar, who was not a multi, but he was able to accomplish a lot of things, which probably speaks even more to the greatness of Oscar Robertson. I know, different game at the time, so it's tough to compare 60s basketball with 20s basketball. But these guys are so talented right now. They're the ones that can bring teams to championships. And you're seeing it, especially with Nikola and Giannis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's Are we gonna be at a point where we just take advantage of it? Like, that's the new expectation with this. When we talk about witnessing greatness and watching greatness, because I do think that at a point we just kind of like take it for granted a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
You get used to it with everything.
I think that's the best way to put it. You get used to it. It was kind of like the Aaron Rodgers thing, right? It was like, well, he threw for 275 and 2 touchdowns. What the heck is wrong with him?
You have to keep wowing someone, I think, to a certain, and I mean, to a degree, this was even the case with, to use the pinnacle example, Jordan, but he had enough wow moments that it reminded you what you were watching. But to a degree, you're like, oh gosh, here go the Bulls again. Like, all that time should have been spending appreciating instead of, well, here they go, win another game. Yeah, he's really good. Okay, that's cool. Who's next? Which might partially go to explain why the Bulls were broken up. It's very easy to be like, okay, what's the next plan? As opposed to knowing what you've got. Yeah, I think we've had Giannis around and long enough. I mean, my gosh, well over a decade now, with a championship already accomplished. And I'm not talking the NBA Cup. With all the drama that we've had, that's been part of the storyline. And so we're not that this is a good reminder of what we're witnessing in this state with one of the state's highest profile sports entities. Remember that, everyone.
Okay, so to feed off of that, I'll go back to a question. I don't know if you heard Morgan ask me this. So not to get into a whole Mount Rushmore thing.
Right.
But if you had to pick one Wisconsin sports figure during your lifetime to represent the state of Wisconsin, is it Giannis? Is it somebody else? Has to be during your lifetime. So obviously people are going to be different. You're a little bit older than me. So you're going to have a little bit more of maybe a little bit more of a pool to choose from. Is it Giannis for people my age or younger? I think, when you get younger, maybe it is Giannis, but what if it's between like me and you and our age group here? Is it Giannis? Is it Favre?
I think it's Favre.
I still lean towards Favre a little bit.
Yeah.
The iconic franchise, resurrecting the iconic franchise, the good old boy, like he's everything else that comes with Favre, right?
He's which makes all the whatever has happened the past few years makes that hard to say, but it's true in real time. What were we actually experiencing? It was Brett Favre. Not initially, as I always remind everyone, of the first few years, maybe not. And then it settled in. Yes. When it got to the point where the story I often like to say, or the example I should say, I often like to say, when the retirement talk started to kick in, I clearly remember thinking over and over for years, like, when that announcement comes, that is an all hands on deck breaking news across our radio stations, not just, well, we didn't have, well, okay, at that time, our sports talk was ESPN 1150, which was just ESPN radio. So we're talking 5 other stations that are not sports stations, and we got to go on as many of them as possible to say, all right, Brett Favre has retired. Haven't thought that with any other athlete in my life. That might be the best example of that.
And the thing is, too, like, let's say Rodgers retired as a Packer. I don't think it would have been to that level.
Not at all. I mean, that thought never crossed my mind, even when he was still with the team. And I think we'd already presumed for a year or two that at that point that, oh, he's going to be leaving. Whereas with Favre, we really thought he was going to retire a Packer the way it was leading up. So had Rodgers given the indication that he was going to do the same, maybe so, but no, because Rodgers was the follow-up. Favre was the one that brought him back to the promised land. I think if we're talking like the absolute all-timers, Favre, I think if you're a little bit of an older generation, Yount rises to the top.
Yeah. And we just keep it player-wise because then you're opening it up for everything else.
Euchre. So. I mean, okay, well, look, if we're talking any sports figure, Bob Euchre is number 1.
Yeah, he goes over generations.
Yes. That end of the story, Euchre tops.
Yep.
But athletes, is that probably
the interesting one for me would be like, who would you put there for coach? Like, I went Alvarez because I'm like, is it Holmgren?
of that era. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to say, well, Lombardi. Okay, well, in our lives,
Exactly. Yeah, our lives here.
Ooh, yeah.
Because
I mean,
it's almost like the MVP vote sometimes. It's like, okay, I already gave it to Favre, so I'm not going to go with another guy of that same Packer regime.
yes,
You know what I mean?
that's a good
Yeah.
that's a good way of looking at it. Because my default thought is Holmgren, but I'm also like a little wired towards the pros.
Mm-hmm.
What about Bo Ryan?
Oh, see, I kind of forgot about that one too. So,
Right.
yeah.
Would you rather take? And I would take.
He's the only one technically in the Hall of Fame. So
True.
I mean,
If we're talking the most iconic coaching figure in my sports lifetime. So again, for everyone's reference, I think if you listen to the show long enough now, you know. But my reference point is the very end of 1984, early 85. So anything from that point forward. What's your, again, just for reference, your first active sports memory where you were following would have been?
probably very early 90s, like 91, 92 or something.
Okay,
there.
so to be like in my case,
pretty close.
Yeah, so like I say 85 to be safe, 92 would be safe for you. Okay,
Yep,
so
yeah.
That's perfect timing for you and Favre and Holmgren. Like
that's exactly right. That's why, like, when people say you never went through those, good. I don't want to. So
literally, you never did. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of what you were observing.
Yeah, it may be a badge of honor for some, but I don't want to. So no, I'm good with what I'm going through right now for Green Bay. Anyways,
it's okay. I think the most iconic one, I'm going to go Alvarez, turning a dead program into one. Okay, we'll make a big picture. They could have been trying to think what Vanderbilt with regard to the SEC. And now they are pretty much an automatic thought for if there's ever a super league. Yeah, Wisconsin's got to be part of it, of course. Which I wonder how long that's going to be the case. But what Barry Alvarez did gave them enough infrastructure, enough cachet, enough recruiting ability. We can criticize over they gave way more than they had. All of that, and of course, success, that they're now considered one of those schools that you would include amongst the absolute best if you're going to do a Premier League for college football. That alone is enough to say Barry Alvarez was the definitive coach. And I'm talking about his coaching, not his AD work, which is also a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
If Barry Alvarez as Badger head coach wildly changed the direction of that program.
Mm-hmm. During your lifetime only, who would be the athlete that defined? Is that the right way to say it? Defined Wisconsin sports?
Yeah, if you had to pick one, who's the top Wisconsin coach of your life? Who's the top Wisconsin player of your life?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you could say top Wisconsin executive of your life. Probably Bob Harlan.
Bob Harlan, Ron Wolf.
I mean, who's the guy that changed the Packers in a structural sense? You could say Wolf, but Harlan's overseen it also to the point that it can get past.
It's the trickle-down effect. It's like, well, Harlan's hired Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Wolf hired Holmgren. Wolf traded for Favre. So it's like, who gets the credit at that point?
And I think you can make a good case either way. I would, if someone said Ron Wolf, be like, yeah, okay, that's good.
Yep.
That's a tougher one. That's a good question though.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think, would Giannis be 2? Is he already at number 2 behind Favre?
Okay, in terms of of impact, I hate to say it, I think he's. Well, I don't know how much further down he would go. Like he should be a bigger deal. I think he's bigger nationally than in Wisconsin. And this is fully understanding that the Bucks have become way more popular around the state since Giannis Antetokounmpo has been here.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the best way you can tell that, all the Bucks license plates that have popped up since 2021, of which about 65% of them reference the championship, which is great. And I think that's awesome that you see that. Never would have imagined that. Well, that's a lot of that is Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of impact, I think it's a little quieter because we haven't always been as big in the NBA around here. We're more of a baseball, football place. And then hockey's more competitive with baseball. Imagine if Wisconsin had an NHL team. If your Polar Bears existed. But seriously, that would have factored a lot more.
Thank you for remembering that. Thank you.
Yeah, it could still happen.
Tommy
Maybe
Thompson never answered my letter.
maybe one day. Not him answering your letter, but maybe
No,
one day. I
maybe
mean, he's
one
still
day.
alive, so he could.
Yeah. One of these days, I'm like, do you remember a sixth grader sending you a letter as part of a social studies project
Is that-
asking for a pro hockey team named the Polar Bears?
Nah, I don't remember.
You probably never got it.
Probably not.
2 in, 1 more to go. We'll be back after these news updates. Final hour on this Wednesday morning of June. I was going to say June 15th. Good gravy. It's not even June 15th. It's July.
Be a wee bit cold for that.
Now I was going to say July. January 15th. Good Lord.
July 15th would be even stranger.
Yeah, it'd be 39 in 2 days then. Jeez.
Yeah. July 15th is like a few days before the hottest day of the year, actually. So, yeah, that would be... I'd be confused.
Give me more coffee right now. I need it, apparently. So, anyways, thank you for tuning in however you may be tuning in from this morning. We got some stock reports coming up here in just a little bit. Whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling out there. Not sure. Somebody asked, did we disable the YouTube stream chat? No, I just checked and it's up there. Would love it to be more active out there. Absolutely. Last week we set some numbers, dude. We had people in Michigan trash talking because they were Lions fans, and then our Packers fans started trash talking them. But there's only one left now, so I think that got quieted down there a little bit. So yeah. I would love that thing to kick back up. So we got a lot of people back in there. So no, it's not. I checked it and it was up. So I don't know, but just weird. Passing it along. So
odd.
It's who knows who's running stuff anyways. So technology. But you ready
how excited, by the way, not to go all like geopolitical here, but how excited are you to not have TikTok next week? Possibly. I'm not convinced it's going to happen, but let's say it does.
Honestly, I watch videos on there when I'm bored and I'm trying to find good. I'm doing a lot of swiping because there's not a lot of good stuff that I'm finding.
Yeah.
But in all reality, what if there's one less social media thing for me to gravitate towards? Cool, awesome. I'm actually for it. So.
Probably a good idea, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm really, really trying to cut back. It's just really hard.
Seriously, the other night, it was one of the first times I'm like, you know what? And I put limits on my phone, like, which of course you can always override them.
Yeah.
But I do put on like 12 minutes a day on Facebook, 12 minutes a day on Instagram. Well, then, of course, you go on a computer and you can be on all day. But I had to do that for those two apps. On Blue Sky, I limited my number of followers. So if there's nothing new, there's nothing new. Sorry, you can't keep doom scrolling. It's not doom scrolling, but you can't keep scrolling. But I even thought, should I delete those too? If I really need to, I'll find a computer. But if I don't have them, that means I can do other stuff when I'm walking around and not just like, oh, pull out the phone.
It's just like now a natural, it's a natural habit for me just to grab like, oh, okay, like scroll through because it's just I'm so.
I catch myself
muscle memory almost.
This is a bad thing. I mean, not a bad thing, but like. One of the things I do with my daughter now is she will toss like bouncing like inflatable balls down the staircase to our lower level. Loves doing that. I'll toss them up and she bats them back down. And
then you got to create what that one video out there is, the dog that picks the winners, and there's 2 baskets with the team on each one.
Good idea.
You know, that hasn't been done before.
No. Well, TikTok's still around. But what I find, like, so she'll be up at the upper level. I'll toss the big ball. She'll catch it. She's getting pretty good at catching stuff. She's 3. Like really good at catching big like inflatable balls. But then like she'll get distracted and walk away for a bit to get something else. And as soon as that app pull out the phone, what can I see that's fresh? I'm like, dude, seriously, you don't need to do that, Luke. What are you going to learn? That's how many of us do something like that? Mm-hmm. We all do. So stock falling, TikTok, maybe, I guess.
That would be a good one, actually. So.
Or rising if they get a buyer. I don't know, but we'll see.
Let's do some stock risers and fallers. So why don't you start? Whose stock is rising?
Greg Gard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, 200 wins. I mean, you can get 200 wins and then be stuck on 199 for like 5 months, or don't follow the exact calendar. You know what I mean? 5 months of actual basketball.
Yep.
Hey, they're top 25. They've resuscitated themselves. And I'd say they've kind of done so from my perspective, just as a sports fan, it feels like it's been a little quieter getting back into, I'll say it again, in the mix a little bit. But he's holding his own. His players are producing. Got him. I mean, held off Ohio State last night, but they're a competitive team. They're not winning the national championship this year, but Maybe we talk about them a little deeper into March. I think there's I would also say, based on, and again, this is just guessing, no conjecture, no sourcing or anything. I'm wondering, in the wake of all the Badger football moves that aren't quite panning out and all the Macintosh moves, if there was ever thought of, well, we got to clean house with men's basketball program, if the lack of success with other moves has made anyone within the Wisconsin athletic department go, let's hold before we clean house. If we were going to, maybe we shouldn't with men's basketball. And lo and behold, here they are, a top 25 team once again in this NIL era. It's a good, right now it's a good spot for Greg Gard. So I'd say in a general sense, the stock is going up. That's
a good one. So let me, so Greg Gard has a 645 winning percentage, 200 and 110. He has a 600 winning percentage in conference games, which ranks 8th best among Big Ten coaches of the last 45 years. So, said you have a coach here that has a 645 winning percentage and a 600 winning percentage in conference. Not giving you the name. Would you say, dang, those are good numbers?
Yes.
That's an impressive resume.
Dang, those are good numbers. That's an impressive resume. I exactly quote you. Yes.
Yeah. So then if I put the name Greg Gard to it, does that change the taste in some people's mouths there a little bit? Like,
of course it does. Look, the track record is there. We know the history, and it's not perfection either. There are a fair number of things Gard has done that haven't worked out too. That's what you do when you coach in public like that. Sure, we know not every move is the right one, but broadly speaking, it's worked out. You'd have to presume that the energy, the inertia, as I like to say, of the Wisconsin men's basketball program is strong enough that anyone else could come in and coach them to another, at minimum, Sweet 16 appearance, the Bo Ryan era. You have to presume that. And if you don't, you probably want to stick with who you've got, unless someone to the caliber of a Krzyzewski or a Calipari or someone like that, Roy Williams, just shows up. I guess even Shaka Smart might as well go there. Could just show up and, oh, yeah, now you can go top 10 for sure. Short of that, keep who you got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
That's where I'd stick with it.
I'm going to go a little bit of a different route for my stock riser. No, hear me out. I'm stock riser, the Rams front office, for this reason only. Remember when the phrase was F them picks?
Yep.
They hit on their picks last year with they finally got some first round picks and some high picks, and boy, have they made a huge difference, which you saw Monday night. So for, because they, obviously it was tongue in cheek, but they traded a lot of their picks over the years to get talent to come in right away. And it worked. They got their quarterback Stafford, they got Von Miller, they won a Super Bowl. But, it was always like, screw those picks. They don't need picks. They're going to throw them away and they're going to trade them and all that. And then they finally get some first round picks, and boy, it sure seems like they hit it on the defensive side with Verse and Fisk. And I mean, that was a pretty darn impressive performance from the rookies on Monday night. So for all the, for all the stuff that the front office has been getting from the Rams, like they don't know how they can draft. You look at even last year with Puka and that, and the Rams.
Taking a joke from the podcast that I heard. Does this mean Aaron Donald is overrated?
That's yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean he's an all-timer. Mm-hmm. And they made a lot. Look, they may have threaded the needle on this one. I still think that Super Bowl is speaking of underrated, or over or underrated. I think that Super Bowl is underrated because I've said this before. I'll keep saying it again. It seemed like the response to that was, yeah, cool, they won a Super Bowl, but look what they did to their team going forward. Like, stop. They won the Super Bowl, period. Mm-hmm. You don't follow it up with, but actually, no. They did what they needed to do. They did the thing to win a championship, and they won a championship. Mm-hmm. All right. And now they actually, and okay.
Well, we talk about that with Brewers all the time.
Yeah.
You'd sacrifice a lot just to get a championship.
Is there a Brewers? I was thinking about this with regards to the Vikings and Darnold. I was thinking like a couple weeks ago, like what's the best outcome for Darnold and the Vikings going forward? I said, I was thinking to myself, honestly, and this speaks to the history of the franchise, and the same would apply for like the Brewers. If they had won it this year with Darnold, do whatever you want. I kind of don't care. You finally got the trophy. You won a championship. If you want to bring it back, great. If you don't want to bring it back, great. I don't care. You won it. That's
a la Ravens 2000 with like Dilfer.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, whatever it takes to win it. That's all that matters. And okay, so the Rams did it, and now they managed to be competitive. That's the follow up. They had to transition a bit, but well, here we are. They've transitioned towards a younger, successful team so far with a really good coach. There's a stock riser in a broader sense, maybe not just this week, but overall, Sean McVay looking all the better.
Although I will say there's one coach that owns his lunch right now. He's won every game against him. That'd be Matt LaFleur, by the way. So
yeah.
Takes his school lunch money away from him every time they play.
Ooh, those two. But they're buds.
Yeah. So. Who isn't friends with that group anymore? You know, it's like everybody's got the trees all around the place.
The Sean McVay coaching tree?
Yeah. Yep. That's a big oak of a tree there. So stock fallers.
Yeah, a perfect segue right there to one Kevin O'Connell. Okay, so I'm seeing all sorts of takes on these.
Can I give you a take?
Yeah.
Just to push the needle. I'm not saying I believe this, but I'm going to give you a take.
Let's.
So, you know, after the Packers game, we had Packers fans, you know, by the way, the last few weeks singing the praises of Kevin O'Connell, rightfully so. Okay, rightfully so. And the knock on Matt LaFleur was can't win the big games. Well, Kevin O'Connell now is 0-for in the playoffs, and he lost that game that could have got you the 1 seed. So there you go.
Fair point.
I'm not saying I agree. I'm just
right,
I had to throw it out.
But it's there. That's the record.
One time.
Yeah. I mean, what we saw with both you could make the case for LaFleur and for O'Connell. Again, another loss. In O'Connell's case, it's because gosh, his stock was going up. Hold up. Now, this does not mean he just, morphed into Jaguars era Doug Peterson. No, he's still a hot flight coach. I think he was outcoached. I kept thinking mentor, which again, saying Sean McVay as mentor at his age, but it's true. I mean, mentor to student. I think there was a little bit of that going on. The lack of adjustment, unless I guess the case for O'Connell with regard to sticking around with Darnold is you got him as far as you could, and then he didn't perform. What can you do? Maybe you try to coach him further, and that doesn't happen. But there is some scheming stuff all around. It needs a little bit more work. I've seen a fair amount of O'Connell's not all that good from Vikings fans. I'm like, yeah, there's
and
right.
When I retweeted the Glazer thing about teams inquiring to trade Kevin O'Connell, I got ripped. Saying that's not going to, I didn't say it was going to happen. I just I want to see it to happen because I want to see the reaction from Vikings fans. So it's funny that you say now that they're ripping him. I'm like, okay, so you want to trade him now?
Yeah. And I think some of them probably are like, hey, look at what draft picks we could get for this.
Trade him and we'll keep Brian Flores. I don't know,
Well, I think there might be a little bit of a thought of that too.
It's the whole, what's his face name? Brad Childress, Leslie Frazier thing, huh?
Oh, gosh, chilly. Yeah. Look, O'Connell's still a really good coach. He's got to win a playoff game at some point. There was more of an excuse with the Giants game because that team was not nearly as good. We know that. That was the year that broke DVOA. Though actually, Chiefs, there's one particular DVOA metric that the Vikings easily won in terms of way over expectancy. Chiefs this year actually outdid that. But that's also because they had such a really, 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 really good record, whereas their underlying stats are they're a fairly good team. Whereas the Vikings in 2022 were not a good team. They won a lot of games. This year was different. I thought they had coached their way into the right spot. One last point on O'Connell, though. This, and of course, any of us Minnesota fans freak out at anything. So Charlie Walters' last column came out over the weekend. And he mentioned the trade thing, and his take was, Vikings fans, be worried about this. His take, I know he's got insider connections. I'm not sure how insider he is with the Vikings at this point in his career, because he's up in his 70s. So I'm not sure if they've lapsed. But his speculation is it wasn't from the Wilfs, and the Wilfs aren't happy about this. He's thinking, and I'm making some conjecture based on what I think I'd read about. It was either Tomlin or someone else, that this is an agent thing. Probably Trace Armstrong, Kevin O'Connell's agent, probably leaking it. And Walters says it's not just money, it's also control within the organization. If that's the thing, because I don't think money's a problem, even if it's ridiculously high, the Wilfs will pay it. Control gets dicier.
So insinuating O'Connell wants more control?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know how. I presume he and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah get along fine. Adolfo-Mensah's up for a new contract too. Is that the issue? And does that result in a wall at some point? And that's the thing that causes is that's what has caused the trade talk to start. If that's the case, then let's flag this. If it's not, then again, I don't know how much of this is him just speculating in an insider column and how much of it is what he knows.
Mm-hmm.
But he sure made it sound like it's definitely not the Wilfs, and the Wilfs would not be happy about this.
Luke, I was told though that Glazer made that up.
From your sources? Or it's like, seriously?
No, I had people on
they said that?
Yeah, like fans said that Glazer made it up.
Gosh, I got too much respect for Glazer to think he would make something up like that.
I mean, he's like,
no, he's one of the better ones out there.
That's what I thought. Unless I'm missing something here, I don't know.
No, that's why I'm like, why? That's why, yeah. When you said like he's made it up, like, huh? What? No, he couldn't. Not Glazer. There's some. I mean,
like he's the opposite of a Schefter and an Ian, like in the battle of who's first and breaking stuff.
We've talked about before. Like he'll sometimes let some stuff go.
Yeah.
So if Glazer reports it, I think I always think it's legit. But what he's reporting does not, like in this case where he says teams are interested. Sure, it's legit. That doesn't mean it has anything to do with what's going on over in Egan. It could be totally what other teams are thinking. All of this is to say his stock is down, but it's still really high. But yeah, okay, so he's not exactly right on the glide path to Lombardi. Let's hold on that till he wins a playoff game.
Right. There you go. One playoff game.
Yes.
Sticking to which, and this is not to push it with the needle or anything like that, but Sam Darnold is my stock faller.
Yep.
Whether I know Orlovsky yesterday just went off on Shannon Sharp and said like it wasn't Sam Darnold was not the number one issue, and he probably wasn't the number one issue. But facts are facts. Sam Darnold probably lost some money in these last couple of weeks. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
And I think it all is also fair to say that maybe the thought process has changed. Like, how aggressive are you if you are Minnesota to bring him back next year? Is that fair?
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Yep.
So I think it's pretty simple to look at the last couple of weeks and say, yeah, stock faller ended. And did Aaron Glenn break him? Did Aaron Glenn break him at this point?
Maybe so.
Yeah, it's just I think he's still going to get paid. I think handsomely somewhere, whether it's Saints, Jets. No, not to Jets again. But that would be kind of funny actually. He's still going to get a nice contract somewhere. He's going to get $double-digit $1 million, whether it's in the teens or the 20s or 30s even. But it has gone down a little bit, and I don't know if it's going to be a long-term deal anymore, like a 3-4 year. It might even be just another 1-year deal at this point. But
yeah. If you're the Vikings, figure Darnold was supposed to be the bridge to McCarthy. And if you think McCarthy will be both healed of his injury and schooled enough to play next year, and you also don't think Darnold was way, way, way better to the point of we can win a Super Bowl with him, then let's remember where we were at last spring, summer. If you're in the organization, you go on to McCarthy, probably find a decent backup so you're not like, oh gosh, Nick Mullins. That's what you do going forward. I mean, I guess they franchise him. That's a lot of money for a franchise tag. Maybe they do that, or franchise him and trade him. Maybe. I'm not quite sure what happens there, but yeah, the money's down. That's for sure.
I want to take a quick break, but there's two more things I want to get to here before we close up shop. So I'm going to throw out the two questions now to get some people thinking about this one. So one, we're going to do a little throwback here to a little business of sports. Okay. So I'm sure you saw it yesterday, the DirecTV sports streaming service,
Yeah.
My Sports.
Mm-hmm.
So DirecTV is launching My Sports, a sports subscription streaming service with 40 channels, including ESPN, Fox Sports, NFL Network. It launches, the service launches, yesterday in 24 major cities. But it's like $70 a month, I think, is what I saw over there. So you got all this, and it doesn't yet include CBS. I don't think it doesn't have everything out there, but
Correct.
is that something you listeners would? Okay, so here it is. You can try My Sports with a 5-day free trial. Sign up before February 28th. Get it for $50 monthly for the first 3 months. After that, you pay $70 a month. Are you in for that? Something like that? You got ACC Network, Big Ten, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, Golf Channel. Bob, you can get your Golf Channel there, man, that he was griping about. MLB Network, NBA TV, NFL Network, NHL Network, SEC, TBS, TNT, True USA. So yes, there is no CBS on there. Is that something you as sports fans would get into? That's question one. Question two, you mentioned Mike McCarthy. He's got an interview today with the Bears. You're a Vikings fan. I'm a Packers fan. Would that give you a little concern? Maybe not a lot where you're freaking, but if the Bears hired Mike McCarthy, would that give you a little concern like, oh, maybe the Bears might actually be a playoff contender then? Not a championship contender, but maybe kind of actually getting somebody in there that can turn them into a little bit of a competition within the division. So think about that for a little bit. I want to hit up on those two. We got to take a quick break, and then we'll be back here in just a couple minutes. Hit us up with those texts, 715-830-1912. Mike says, good morning, Dan. I'm under the belief that Mike McCarthy is a very good quarterback coach. I'm worried that if he comes to Chicago, he might turn that kid into an all-star. I'd hate to see him playing in our division against us for the foreseeable future. So I wanted to bring this up because, well, one, McCarthy is interviewing with the Bears today after last week the Bears had asked for permission and Dallas said no. What a Never mind. I'll probably say something that will get me in trouble, but I don't really get what Jerry Jones and Dallas is doing. But again, probably not trying to get in it. And that mind is probably for the benefit of my doubt to just whatever. Just a jerk move, in my opinion, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and it hurt themselves too because they missed out on the first waves of interviews, but whatever. So McCarthy's interviewing with Chicago today. It sure seems like Chicago has an interest in him if they tried last week and now they get to. Apparently, the Saints are going to interview McCarthy too, where he was an offensive coordinator back in the day, leading the one-time great backup Packers quarterback Aaron Brooks to playoff appearances. There's a name.
Wow.
So you as a Vikings fan, me as a Packers fan, obviously very familiar with McCarthy because of him being a Packers fan, you on the one side, me on the other side here. We know the issues that have been surrounding Chicago. I think you and I both would agree, Luke, that Chicago has talented young players, right?
Yes.
I think we would agree with that.
Yes.
If McCarthy is the one that gets hired to lead that franchise, does that give you a little bit of worry that, oh no, could they actually now start to compete for a division championship or for a playoff spot?
Not that worried. I think there's a level. I think there's a baseline of competence, as we saw with the Cowboys. Like they were generally a playoff team most of the time with McCarthy. Not this year, but there were extenuating circumstances as well. Dak, obviously. So they would be third time this morning in the mix for the division, where I think like the Vikings seem to move up and down with regularity. The Packers could have a bit of an off year. Lions, it's still too early to say. Like, is this the new Lions? Are they going to turn into a slightly lesser version of the Pats in the aughts and teens and go on to dominate the NFC? Or is this a short wave and then they turn back into Lions going forward and we're shocked when they're good? In which case the Bears may be a second place team and the Lions are in fourth and the Vikings are in third and maybe the Packers win a division in a given year. I'm not worried about Mike McCarthy turning the Bears into the top team in the NFC North on a regular basis. I do think there's a possibility. We've seen this with a fair number of coaches. They'll have one or two decent jobs and like their third job, they don't have it. That team has a bad record for like 2 years and they're gone.
John Fox with the Bears.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was thinking of the coaches with 3 years on there. So
Doug Peterson, that's a second, but
that's
like
a second.
We go.
Parcells, how many did he have? He had the Giants, he had the Patriots, he had the Jets, and then the Cowboys were his fourth.
I mean, if you really want to go a bit of a slight zag, Bill Walsh at Stanford.
Now the other one I was thinking of, he had regular season success, but it was Schottenheimer with the Chargers.
Yeah. I mean, that did work. I wonder what a third one would have been.
That was his third, wasn't it? Yeah, because he coached
Browns and Chiefs.
Chiefs,
right.
yeah.
So that, I mean,
well, heck, that was his fourth. He had Washington for a year.
that's right.
Dan Reeves had to have at least 3, I think.
Yeah, because Giants, Broncos, Falcons.
Yeah.
So a lot of them do work, but then like at the very end, and it doesn't happen with everyone, obviously. I wonder if that does happen with McCarthy. Not predicting it, but I wouldn't be shocked if McCarthy went in like, it's still not working for the Bears. And that could, again, speak to a structural thing. The Cowboy organization, thanks to Jones, is not as effective as it could be. The Bears organization is definitely not as effective as it could be. That's a bigger issue, and that could impede him some. But then again, they've drafted really good players. Like we said, like the talent level is there. It may be other organizational issues that hold them back, but that's a little more nebulous to predict.
Here's how I feel about the potential of Mike McCarthy being he's a candidate, but a potential hire for Chicago. I believe you got a general manager in Ryan Poles who is, I don't want to say a lame duck GM, but he's kind of on the hot seat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, is he going to be in a position where he wants to hire a coach that necessarily can't force him out of his position? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like he can hire a coach that, hey, just does enough to kind of tread water to kind of, okay, get some positive stuff going here and getting us in a positive direction. Like, I don't think, for an example, like I think it would be a good fit, but like a Pete Carroll. Like I feel like a Pete Carroll hire could force Ryan Poles out of an organization, like that personality, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't know if this is is his thinking here a little bit, but like his Poles have this mindset. I got to get a coach that I know pretty confident. I know what the base is going to be, kind of what you were saying. He can start to improve. He can start to get to a playoffs here, but I still have control of this, and he's not necessarily going to push me out of my role or push me out of that franchise sort of thing.
Yep.
That's what I feel like is kind of going. It's just a gut thing. I don't have any insight or anything like that. McCarthy fits that, in my opinion. Like he's going to come in. He's not going to demand for personnel control or have a whole lot of say, right? That's not going to be McCarthy.
That could have been him at an earlier point in his career. I think he's been around enough. It's like, no, I just want to coach well.
Mm-hmm.
That's the vibe I'm getting anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like he has no interest in that. Remember, Pete Carroll had the final roster saying Seattle. Like he had that control over there, over John Schneider. So that's where I feel like, the whole Ben Johnson thing, it would be a great hire. But if who would have a little bit more sway, Ben Johnson or Ryan Poles? I think it's going to be Ben Johnson right away. And does a general manager who's already on a hot seat want to embrace that? I don't know. That it might be an ego thing, which we've seen how many times.
Yep, a lot.
I do think McCarthy could help kind of reset Caleb Williams. The comparison that I think I want to throw out there is maybe Doug Peterson year one with Trevor Lawrence.
Interesting.
Because Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, Urban Meyer, it was awful. And I think everybody thought, okay, smart hire, bring in Doug Peterson, kind of get Trevor Lawrence back on track. That first year, they went to the playoffs. And it was awful after that. But somebody just to kind of like, okay, let's get a base going here a little bit. So that I do think McCarthy could help a guy like Caleb Williams in his offense. The one thing that it wouldn't give me a ton of concern about having McCarthy in Chicago, I don't trust his ability to find the right assistants, the right coaching staff. That to me, I feel like he is at times still too loyal to a lot of guys. Because remember, Cowboys, Dan Quinn was kind of forced on him, right?
Yeah.
He hired his old buddy Mike Nolan, and it was awful. Dan Quinn's available. Jerry Jones is like, we're getting him. Okay. You look at the other guys on his staff. You telling me Brian Schottenheimer is still an offensive coordinator in this league? Well, for Mike McCarthy, he is. It's like that to me, in the Mike Zimmer hire, I mean, come on. No offense, but come on. So I don't know if I trust his ability at this point to hire a very good staff around him that could take him to a Super Bowl level.
Yeah. So then they're like their defense starts slipping some, and hey, Williams looks great in a 38-35 shootout loss for the Bears' fourth loss in a row. They were getting that ends. I could see that being the outcome here. And okay, so they really didn't advance at all. Yeah. So all of this is to say, in my position, Vikings fan, that it doesn't worry me. I'm not laughing at it, but I'm like, okay, cool. Well, we'll take care of our own business over in Minnesota, and Packers, you take care of your own business in Wisconsin. I think we'll be okay.
The thing I would be kind of curious to see though too is like, let's say he gets hired, and they ask him, what will he say about Green Bay? All these other Bears coaches that come in and say, what's always their number one goal to beat Green Bay? Like, is he really going to have something negative to say about Green Bay? You know what I mean? Like
maybe something involving massage tables, I guess.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
But he's so, even when he was with Dallas, never a bad thing about Green Bay. And Chicago, I'm sure he's going to be a little extra motivated to go up against Green Bay. Of course he would. Why not? He's done it a couple times. He's lost a couple times already. So it's probably still eating at him. But I don't think he's going to say number one goal is to beat Green Bay. That sort of thing. It's not going to be. It's going to be, I think, kind of weird, to be honest with
Well,
you.
I get the rivalry, but that shouldn't be the number one thing anyway.
Exactly.
Win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, if you lose, I hope it for. I say this seriously, but I'm also not part of the Bears-Packers rivalry. I hope it's not like Ohio State, Michigan level, where like, cool, Ohio State could win the national championship, but you lost to Michigan.
Oh, yeah,
so
Ryan Day's going to get fired because he's lost to Michigan. Yet
failure.
You know.
Like, hang on. What again? Why are we playing these games? Yeah, okay. Older college football mindset, actually, up until maybe 40-ish years ago. Actually, that might have been the bigger deal, beating Michigan than a national championship. The sports culture's changed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case even in the NFL. Well, it hasn't changed as dramatically because I think a championship has been a bigger deal, but it's still the more important thing.
I will say, with the other former head coach that is interviewing with the Bears tomorrow, or actually is today, Arthur Smith. If you had to pick between Arthur Smith and Mike McCarthy, I'd probably still pick Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. I wasn't that. I mean, I'd like to see more of Arthur Smith as a coach to like in a vacuum. But McCarthy's got a better track record. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Really quick then to this My Sports package, Luke. Intrigued with it or not really?
Yeah, not really.
Do you think it's a good idea?
I don't know. Like, I kind of trust that people running these organizations know what's going to work, because that's kind of their job to do so. But like what I would want, I mean, I guess because games are spread around so many platforms, I get the appeal of that. But as I was looking through the specifics, I'm like, so do they have like all the whatever RSNs left at this point? There are a lot. How many are? Oh, actually, there's not that many. And I see a fair number on there that I have no real interest in watching. True TV, okay, that's great for 2 days. SEC Network, I don't care.
Yeah.
And that starts to pick up a fair amount more with it. I would definitely not. Now, then again, I'm also the person that's already cut cable, and I'm relying on either highlights or following along certain people on social media who I think got a pretty good handle on it, and then reading the summaries and doing the breakdowns. I basically converted into that younger person that experiences sports that way, because that's the way that a lot of younger people. I've done that, and I miss some of it, but I wouldn't want to spend $70 for all those channels when I might be able to watch that a little bit, and I can get about the same amount in retrospect.
Yeah.
What about you? Would you?
Me being the diehard sport, no, thank you. $70 is hard for me to swallow a month for that. Considering, like you said, there's a lot of those on there that I don't give a rip about. Like you said, SEC Network, no, thank you. I'm not into that one.
A lot of good sports there in general, but do we care?
No.
And you care about?
No, I mean, I would rather, if I had to, if all things were even, I would rather have paid to, for my local teams, my state ones. I'd rather make sure I'm watching that over, okay, it'd be different. Like, say, if you own let's say a sports bar, right? If you own a sports bar, that might be intriguing for you because, like, okay, I got all these options now in one package. Boom, it's up on the TV.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Might be different that way. Or, when we do some updating in the studio, management, have that, just saying, TV up and all that. No, I'm just kidding. But
15 TVs in the studio.
Yep. On 15 different channels.
And at 8:30 in the morning, all those talking head shows.
Yep. $70 is just too much for me to swallow a month. I don't care about the $50 before, okay, that's for a few months. That's a lot for me. Considering the average watch time for me on that is not even close to being worth it.
No.
No, it's an intriguing idea. I think it would work for businesses and such, but for me as a personal, no, I can't do that.
Well, especially after Venue got axed because they're like, well, actually the direction is a little bit different, which was telling me they're focusing more towards like maybe going over the top, like the upcoming, ESPN flagship thing. That makes more sense. Like the I think the biggest thing the biggest thing I'm missing with no cable now is ESPN, and I guess the ability to stream broadcast networks on my phone through the cable package. But at least, so like if I'm out of my house, that sucks, but it depends on which channel, because some of you actually can't stream out of the house anyway with your cable package. But I got a digital antenna, so CBS, it doesn't really work. But the other ones I can watch, it's okay. But ESPN, now, yeah, I have ESPN Plus. Of course, it's not actual ESPN, but this means the college football playoff, I haven't watched any of it because I can't. And I won't be able to watch the national championship. I am 100% out on being able to watch. This is the first time I think in my life I will have not been able to watch any of that. And I do kind of miss it a little bit.
Yeah.
If there were a ESPN flagship that was for like maybe in the 20 to 30 range, I might be underselling what they're going to go for. I might consider that. It's cheaper than cable, but gives me a lot of the options that I want to have.
If there was ever, and I don't think this would ever happen, and we've kind of alluded to this at points, but if there was ever like a package where you could just like customize it and pick what you wanted, that would bring me to the table for some talks. Like, okay, you've got these you got every sports channel out there. And you got a package where you could pick 5. Any 5. That might get me to the table.
Funny thing, and I know there's some a la carte options. I know, like, I can't remember what, because I did this with like Spectrum with like my mom and selected like the 10 channels that you get. So they had that option. Those kind of options do exist in a broad sense. What you're saying, I wish there was some platform that was like, you know what? Yeah, we know every channel wants guaranteed carriage. But if someone did offer that, I would think there'd be enough variety that everyone would get satisfied to a certain degree. Because it's better than people being like, no, I won't take any of that. Give more a la carte options. If I could select, oh gosh, whatever the name, FanDuel Sports North, blah, 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 blah. Select that plus ESPN, maybe MLB Network or something like that. I'd be good.
Yeah, it would have to include your local ones like you just mentioned there too.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
But that would cover a lot of what I'm interested in. And I think I speak for, not speak for, but I imagine a lot of our listeners think of the same thing.
Right.
But we don't have that option because then not all the other channels come along. And again, carriage options, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah. How much do you watch? Like, that's the thing with media like streaming. I've found myself watching a lot more on my phone and tablet.
Yep. I'm always doing that.
Because this is the first time that I think, well, I did it last year, but it was just half. But I didn't leave the tree stand early. I watched the Packer game on my phone.
Yep.
I'm like, oh yeah, give me this, man. I'm doing both what I want to do right now.
Yeah. Sometimes
in the past, I would leave the stand early and just I got to watch the game.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll have it like if there is if the stream is coming through the ESPN app because the game is on ABC, and then it actually comes through for free. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like the Monday Night Football game. I could have done that.
Like any streaming service, I would need it where there's an app so you can watch it mobile too.
Right. So that's a plus. So yeah, I do that more. I've watched, a big reason I have a ESPN Plus is NFL Primetime. This morning I was catching up on it before I came in, and I watched it on my phone. Every episode this year has been 100% phone. I could direct it to my TV. I could direct it to the laptop, watch every single one on my phone. I'm good. It works for me. Phones, of course, have gotten to the point you can watch them more easily than even 10, 15 years ago, obviously. But yeah, I'm good with that. I'm fine.
And I think one thing I've noticed too quite a bit in the last few years, going to like long road trips to Packer games and such, if you're not the one driving and you got a group with you, what are we doing? We got a phone up and we're watching the next game. It's like, you're not scrolling, trying talking. You're like, okay, we got to watch the 3:00 game or the Sunday night game that night.
Yeah.
So if I got to stream, I gotta have the app with it.
That's the changeover now. It's what we've become more accustomed to doing and being. Also depends on how mobile you are in your life. but you discover you can do more if you're more mobile. Again, you've got a younger kid. I've got a much younger kid. In both cases, that keeps us from able to like flop down to the couch and watch for 3 hours and nothing. Nope, not even close. I'm lucky if I can sit for 30 seconds before, oh, I got a direct over here. Well, good thing that I have the ability to watch it on a phone.
Yep.
Yeah, any parent knows that's going to be a factor. So have the apps. That's a much better thing.
Yep. All right, quick break, and we'll have some picks and predicts coming at you as we wrap up this final hour after these quick words. Picks and predicts time brought to you by the Elbow Room. Again, if you're looking for somewhere warm to catch some of these games, you can head on over to the Elbow Room located right next to the Banbury Place. Plus, Wednesday night is trivia night. Let's take a look at some of the NBA games on tap tonight. We do have the Bucks here going up against the Orlando Magic. We'll save that one here. First off, let's do Knicks at 76ers.
I'll take the Knickerbockers.
Yeah, Knicks here too. Let's do Dallas at the Pelicans.
Dallas slipping a bit, but the Pelicans suck. I'm sorry, but it's true. What a fall for New Orleans this year. I know it's closer. I'm going to take Dallas holding off the Pels.
I'll go Dallas. Dallas too. A good one. Houston at Denver.
Yes, it is. I'll take Denver.
I'll go Denver too. But Houston and Cleveland, I think, are the two biggest surprises in the NBA so far this year.
I'd say
like Cleveland's a playoff team, but they fired their coach, which met a lot of criticism, and the fact that they're off to this start is pretty darn impressive.
Mitchell's out. No, he's not. He's still there, and it's looking really good. Cleveland and Houston, I think, and Detroit, I would throw in there as the biggest pleasant surprises. The good surprises this year. Detroit, too. I mean, dang.
Yep.
Okay.
I think a lot of people thought, okay, Houston was going to be on the rise, but to say they're like a top 3 in the West already is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So,
my gosh. Well, right now, it's OKC and Cleveland way ahead of everybody.
Golden State at your T-Wolves. There's no line for this one. I don't have it.
I got it in Minnesota 6.5.
Okay.
Timberwolves have been somewhat better of late. I will say the Warriors somehow pulled this off. This feels like one of those, back to this, and it's the whiplash with the Wolves. Will Ant get fined for some random reason again? At what point are we like, okay, refs, stop? I mean, I know he's that, but NBA, here's one of your up-and-coming stars, and you want to just keep like shutting him down?
Yeah.
Is that the smart move, guys? Really?
Right. I'm going to go T-Wolves tonight.
Okay.
And then finally, Orlando at Milwaukee.
Yes. I'll take the Bucks.
I'm going to go with the Bucks here too. And then those are our picks. Predict for you.
Okay.
Will it happen? Will Dion be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? And this is from Jane Slater, by the way, who covers the Cowboys. I love that the NFL Network has one dedicated reporter for the Cowboys over the years. She had posted last night. I'm half joking here, but not really. If, and it's a real big if right now, Dion and Jerry happened, make no mistake, Jerry is pitching a show to Netflix and gaining any money he wouldn't normally pay a coach and staff. At the very least, it's a marketing success. Hire a coach, and then let's make a show. If that spells winner.
Wow. I will predict if that does happen, I may restrict my NFL intake to just Vikings and Packers games. So I know Vikings games, probably NFL primetime, and literally that is it. Because if I try to follow anything else, it's going to be Dion and the Cowboys and Dak all the time. It will be the worst.
The thing is,
dreading that.
I agree. And I was a Dion guy as a kid, believe me.
Yeah, actually, one of our resident Raiders fan here at the building said, what about like Dion to the Raiders? I'm like, that wouldn't bother me from a hype point of view. And there'd be plenty. It wouldn't bother me like a Cowboys one.
The thing is, I have this weird feeling. I only got 10 seconds left here.
And by the way, my prediction is that does not happen.
Yeah, I don't think it happens either. What if Dion said, I will come, but you have to trade Dak and move up in the draft and draft my kid?
I don't know if Jones does that. He's so loyal to everyone.
I know.
And that's new people. I don't think
kind of new.
Yeah.
I mean, Dion did play there, so.
He did, but Dak's the current guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he does it.
I don't either, but would that surprise you if that was Dion's demand?
No.
I don't think so either.
Drama.
I'm sticking with my pick from last week. My when McCarthy was still coach, it's going to be Kellen Moore, bringing him back to Big D.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us, DP. Dan, it's up next. Have a good Wednesday. Back at it tomorrow morning.